So a few days ago I had the idea to make a draw with me type of video. At first I kind of struggled a bit with what I wanted to draw because I wanted something interesting for the video. As you already read, I ended up deciding to draw Princess Peach, Princess Daisy, but if they were magical girls, which I think turned out pretty cute. And I also, before I say anything else, wanted to give a quick shout out because this is heavily inspired, or I don't know, I guess just inspired by I think it's called Sketch With Me series that Dollightfull makes. So yeah, that's kind of what made me go, oh, but what if I made something like that? But yeah, I decided to dig out my ancient Copic markers for this, and it turns out I have a lot more than I remembered. This is kind of me going, wait, I have this many? But the first thing that I did with them was test all of them. I just used the little code that they have on them. I think I kind of did a bad job at showing you, but they all have like a little code, and that's just basically what I used. I just wrote down their number because a lot of them don't really work that well anymore because I used to use these quite a lot. Now I do know that you can refill them, but for this video I just decided to go with the ones that still worked. So this is the list that we ended up with, and I also collected all of the dead markers and put them aside. Before we can get to using the markers though, we first need to finish the sketch, the design, the line art and all of that stuff. So I made this little plan with stick figures. I don't actually know how much this helped, but I always kind of feel the need to draw a little plan, and I even painted my nails to match, but actually don't look because it turned out super messy because I suck at painting my nails. But okay, here we are in the time lapse. As you can see, I'm just sketching away. I kind of struggled a bit with her arm placement there, but luckily in the time lapse it goes by super quickly, so it doesn't actually look as bad, but in real time I struggled quite a bit with that. And as you might have seen, I'm drawing Peach on the left, Daisy on the right, and I'm also including a little height difference between them, as you can see. I noticed while looking at renders of the characters that Daisy's like just a centimeter or so smaller than Peach. Obviously I made the difference a bit larger here just because I didn't want them to look too similar. I was thinking about also giving them their crowns, but I don't know, I guess I thought that might be a bit too much. By the way, you can see what reference images I'm looking at on the left there. It's mostly just the characters themselves, but I also had a look at some pretty cute characters to see how they would design their magical girls. And I kind of just put those together and just came up with a design spontaneously. We do have a time skip here because mistakes have been made, but fortunately there wasn't too much footage lost. So we're on to the line art a bit quicker than expected. For some reason, line art is always the hardest part for me. I think the problem is that, well, for one, I suck at it and I need to practice more, but then also the fine liner that I'm using here and the one that I'm always using for all of my traditional art pieces kinda sucks as well. I should really go and grab a better one. The problem is, the second that I'm done with this voiceover, I'll completely forget about it until it's time to ink the next sketch. But for example, here a horrible disaster occurred because I managed to get some of the ink onto my finger and then get that back onto the paper. I also managed to smudge the ink in a few other places, even though I waited ages for it to dry. Like I said, fine liner sucks. I don't think you can really tell on camera though, which I don't know if I'm supposed to be upset for the sake of the video or happy for the sake of my honor. I also decided to take a risk there because I saw that in between them there was this kind of just empty space. So I decided to extend Peach's dress a bit, which could have gone horribly, but I think it worked out well. It looks a bit weird. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's fine. This is fine. We're fine. To distract you from that, let me tell you about an art tip that I have for you. It's happened to me before that when I came up with a design spontaneously that I really liked it, but then I completely ruined it because the random colors that I picked for it just did not work out. So one thing that I like doing now is I take an ugly photo of it, pop that into the art tool of my choice, in this case it's color, and then draw on top of it. As you can see, it really does not need to be perfect. It's really just to test the colors and see what they would look like together. I guess that means though that it's not entirely spontaneous anymore, because I guess this does qualify as planning, but I'm fine with that. I'm also gonna put a list of all of the markers that I'm using on screen if you're curious about that. Also, can we talk about something really quick? Daisy has blue eyes? Since when? If you'd asked me about what eye color she has before making this, I would have been like, oh, they're brown, or no, they're green for sure. But they're blue? Did I just discover the Mandela effect of the century or something? But I guess that's something that's really cool about drawing famous characters like them, is that you discover all of these little details, like the height difference earlier and now this, the differences that make you go, oh, I never noticed this, and also the differences that make you go, did I just accidentally get teleported to an alternate dimension where everything is the same except for this tiny little detail which could be evidence for the existence of the multiverse, and now I need to explain that to somebody but nobody will ever believe me? Anyway, so I realized I haven't talked about what I'm doing in quite a while. So I finished with the flat colors earlier and now I've moved on into shading. I like to shade with 3 colors, so I have my base color and then I have a darker color than that and then I have an even darker color than that. And one thing that I like to do, especially with my traditional drawings these days, because this looks a little empty right now, I like to add a shape in the background with some color that fits. So I took yet another ugly photo and tested around in color. I decided to just go with a square because that's the easiest thing to do. And I tested some colors that I already used in the picture before. So I had this light purple color. And I also had this teal color, and then I also had like a blue color, but in the end I just decided to go with that teal color because I felt like it looked the best. I didn't actually plan this, but it was very helpful that the paper that I put in between the pages earlier was squared paper, so I could kind of see the lines from that through the page and I could use that. I also had to extend the square a bit because it looked a little uneven. But then, when I wanted to color it and I made those first few strokes, I made a horrible realization. Remember when I talked about how some of my markers don't work that well anymore earlier? Yeah, it turns out this marker also, I mean it still worked, but it could have been working better. So unfortunately I had to use the brush side of the marker for most of this, which means that I couldn't really get that even texture that you can get with Copic markers. But it gets even better because the next thing that I wanted to do was, because I had that darker teal, I wanted to draw shadows onto the square because I thought that could be a really cool effect. And then the first thing that I did was to draw in the shadow onto the wrong side, like the true champion that I am. So my new plan was to simply just outline them with a color, and then I also outlined the entire square, which I think turned out pretty cool too. And honestly, about that even texture problem, I don't think you would have noticed that if I hadn't told you about it anyway, so I don't know, it's a little sad, but it's not a massive loss. And with that, it was done. And it was time to see if that sheet of paper that I put in between actually worked, and it did. Nothing got onto the next page. Also, the back. That's your daily dose of nightmare fuel right there. Oh, and one last thing. I called the color in the background teal, but on camera, and at least for me here, it looks very blue. So I did some editing magic to try and match the actual color more closely. Maybe it's just because of my screen settings or something, and this is going to come out very strangely for you. I also scanned it in and it came out looking correctly too. So yeah, I really don't know. Regardless of that, I really like the result. I think they turned out really cute. And I also really like the designs that I came up with. I think if I were to redraw this someday, or redo this someday, I think I would want to make Peach's top section a bit more interesting. Because at the moment she doesn't have a lot going on besides her crystal or whatever that is. Yeah, but all in all, I really like it. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Since it's my first time ever making anything like this, definitely leave all of your feedback for me down below. Yeah, I'm really curious what you have to say. I'm not sure if I'll make a video like this again. I had a lot of fun, so I think I might, even if everybody tells me that they hated it. And yeah, I guess you'll hear from me maybe in another episode of this, or maybe never again. Bye!